Housing Assistance in Emergency Circumstances by Reabetswe, Megan, and Lavelle. So, just to introduce, what is emergency housing? Emergency housing is a program developed to address the constitutional right of South African citizens to access housing. It is intended to address homelessness, eviction, and living condition posing immediate and serious risk or hazard. The program can be used to accommodate households located in the way of development and services such as pipelines, road, and others. Emergency housing can be used to purchase and disseminate materials to construct shelter, assist with relocation to new sites, settlement planning, and interim basic servicing. So, what is the program about? The program is about reducing vulnerability to produce a response that is proactive and to enhance support and maintain livelihood strategies. What is the intention of the program? The intention of the program is to provide reactive or proactive assistance in the housing people in communities in case of an emergency. Relocation is usually considered as a last resort because it forms problems. Households tend to become affected due to the familiarities and comforts that are imposed during relocation. So, who can benefit from it? Who are the key role players? The implementation of the emergency housing program is aimed at primarily to offer guidance to officials in municipal and provincial government who are directly engaged with the process of provision of emergency housing in South Africa. The second target group is all the stakeholders involved with other programs that directly impact and inform the emergency housing program. So, who are the beneficiaries? The beneficiaries would be affected people unable to address their housing needs through private funding or other available resources, verified against income and assets in case of formal house repair or reconstruction. Beneficiaries cannot be denied assistance where other programs cannot assist. So, these beneficiaries would include people who do or do not qualify for housing subsidies, households or people exceeding the max income limit for subsidies, households headed for minors, people without dependents, not first-time buyers, the elderly, housing subsidy beneficiaries of other programs, evicted people, urban and rural, and illegal immigrants. So, what would the solution be for planning for a permanent solution? This will be the settlement planning, the future planning of design, the layout and the management, settlement to be formalized over time, reserve or create space for other facilities, the EHP, Emergency Housing Program, responsible to create enabling preconditions, and security of tenure. Tenure from beginning of program between government and affected people to understand rights and responsibilities. Affected households have an agreement with the municipality that ensures the safeguards them against arbitrary removal or eviction from the land. Agreement with government and affected people should be reached from the beginning of an emergency response. People should be aware of their rights, not being evicted, and responsibilities, build, own shelter, or pay for some services. Design and provision of basic municipal engineering services necessary for future transition to permanent housing. Initially communal services, later upgraded to provide individual housing services. Other housing programs should take over to implement a longer term solution and find housing opportunities of conventional upgrading and housing delivery, including broad-based provisions of interim basic services. So the type of resulting housing. If relocated, temporary shelter should be offered on the site of relocation or resettlement. Temporary shelter can be as basic as offering starter kits to providing advanced structures. As a general principle, temporary structures should be durable and reusable whenever possible. So what would be choosing the appropriate responses? If you refer to the table, choosing the responses and trajectory, this will be choosing your responses according to the policies, the principle, and the context, with the EHP being in the middle of all of these three. The responses to trajectory, this would be a permanent housing solution, even if it's from short to medium to long term, according to the time frames. So choosing the appropriate responses. These would be elements relevant to the emergency to be considered, limitations and opportunities to be understood, apply the principles to guide the decision making, responses are short to medium-term solutions to housing needs, immediate need is addressed through disaster response interventions, longer-term housing solution to be pursued by other housing programs. Emergency housing is aimed at filling the gap. So, disaster responses. Short-term response may need to be expedited parallel to the implementation of emergency housing, provision of tent, food, blankets, and medical supplies. Excuse me. Operational cost issues should receive attention consideration of effects of disaster response on subsequent emergency housing development responses. If the provision of disaster shelter is prolonged, it could institute inadequate shelter and be problematic. Roles, responsibilities, and timeframes to be clearly defined and maintained. So what are the minimum standards? If you refer to the table, the types of services is like a maximum level of municipal engineering excuse me, services in the case of temporary settlements. The water, sanitations, and yeah. Here's more tables which offer on-site assistance. This would be the response options for implementers and relevant key considerations. And this flowchart for emergency housing situation summary. This is what would happen if you were to be in an emergency housing situation. Examples would be the Cape Town Joe Slovo Township. Relocation as a result of fire and evictions from informal settlements and temporary relocation areas rendered at least 12,000 people homeless. Pick it up, site evictions from an unsafe location has not commenced yet. So what would the critiques be? The weaknesses versus the strengths. Cape Town weaknesses. Relocation areas are unsafe and not well located, do not offer security of tenure, and do not provide options for permanent placement. Due to the several role players, conflicts arise as a result of their overlapping responsibilities, leading to disputes over resources, available land, and authority on project activities. Relocation areas costing more than the basic funding amount provided by the annual housing subsidy quantum. Relocated caused the loss of income and employment. Strengths. Services such as communal standpipes and communal ablution blocks, toilet and showers are provided in all relocation houses. The structures are often larger than the shacks where households previously lived. Johannesburg weaknesses: high level of objections and complaints from neighbors who state that they do not want more poor people relocated to the area. Relocating the community to the relocation areas will significantly impact their livelihoods, since their current activities depend on the pick-it-up waste dump. Strengths. The proposed site for resettlement is located to a major transport transportation route proposed for future integrated rapid transit. This proposed location is already owned by the municipality. Thank you for your time.